Welcome to the Infuse Compassion podcast, hosted by me, Amy Quisenberry.
And me, Mark Carpenter.
We are on a mission to make this world a kinder place for us all by bringing healthier human connection to communities, families, and organizations of all types and sizes.
Our goal is to create stronger relationships, more inspired teams, increased trust, and improved results.
So let's get started with more ways to infuse compassion into our world.
Welcome back, Compassionators. So glad to have you with us in this episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. Amy and I are really excited to talk about the guest that we had last week, Heather Nemelka, as she was talking about her business or her nonprofit of Elavare, which helps women who are returning to work after having a break, typically a break where they're raising families. And her personal experience was really what was driving that. But she had so many great points on both sides of the impact and the power, the value that these women can add coming back into the workplace, but also some challenges that they face in making that transition and almost pressing the restart button on their life and their identity. Amy, what were some of the main things that you took away from our conversation with Heather?
You know, I'm going to begin with where I ended, which is she is a fierce advocate for women in this group. I mean, and when I think about women that have given so much to their families, which I know a lot of women like that who just give unselfishly. There are no limits to their giving and their love for their families. When you think of somebody like that, what do they need more than anybody? They need one of them. They need somebody just like them to come and be that for them.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody that's going to show up and be in their corner and help them through this world that they've been away from or maybe have never been a part of. And Heather does that with such power and strength and also compassion and understanding, and not only helping them, but also going directly to companies and talking about the loyalty that they will get from these employees. Just her fierce advocacy. I just loved it. So I was really struck by that, but I was also struck by the continuity of her processes, how well thought out it was, how complete and comprehensive the whole piece, the whole pie, if you will, was. There's a lot more than I could get into, but I want to bring you in. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, and that's why everybody needs to go back and listen to Heather herself too, because we don't want to repeat everything that she said, but she did have so many great points and great ways that she's helping these women. You said the words power and compassion in describing Heather, and I would even say there's compassion in the power that she brings.
Yeah,
because the power is actually driven by passion, but also by compassion, recognizing what these folks are going through in that situation where maybe they lack a little confidence and they need somebody to say, I'm going to take you down this path because I've been on this path. And I'm going to show you that not only is it doable for me, but it's doable for you. And that we can get down that path together. The other part of that was the tip that she gave there toward the end about we have opportunities to help build that confidence in women returning to the workforce too, to let them know you can do this. And sometimes they need somebody to point out, these are the skills you have that will make you a great asset to an organization. And so take advantage of those skills and promote those skills up front. I know some people that have been in this situation where they're returning to the workplace after raising families, or they've stepped away for other reasons. And they say, well, but I lack this and this and this and this. And they list all the things that they lack.
Yeah.
And and I tell them, lead with that.
Yeah.
That's almost like leading with an apology. Lead with the value that you do bring to the workplace.
Hmm.
I loved how she pointed out that when you give these people a chance, when you give them an opportunity, they will be the most loyal people you have because they so greatly appreciate you giving them the opportunity to get back into the workplace. They
Hmm.
will find a way to prove you right, that they deserved to be hired, that they were the right hire. And so there's just a lot in there that we can do to support people that are in which is rather a difficult situation.
Hmm. Yeah. I've also liked the way Heather talked about really looking for the potential that people have, and I this is something that really isn't talked about. I mean, I think we're so busy looking for concrete validation. There's a lot of times the fear, the pressure that's on a hiring manager to get it right. I mean, I really want to call that out because there's so much pressure when you think, we don't want a square peg in a round hole. We want a round peg in a round hole, right? I mean, it's one of the phrases. I'm mocking myself. I use that phrase all the time, right? Um, but to really, there's a lot of gut instincts that go into the interview process, and what are you hearing, what are you seeing, and to really look for that potential in that person, and even think about what questions can you ask to uncover the potential that somebody has. She really spotlighted the resourcefulness of somebody that's been raising kids, and you don't need to have all the answers on day one. You'll figure it out on the job. Most of what we do, a lot of what we do is figure it out on the job. Even if we did it in another organization, how we're doing it, who we're doing it with, it's complete. The systems that we're in, it's different than what we've done in the past. And we're figuring it out real time on the job. Let's not overcomplicate or overthink this and really look at what's the potential of this person sitting in front of me right now.
Yeah, and she used the word potential. And when she was talking about hire for potential, the other phrase that came to my mind was hire for fit.
Mm.
In other words, who's going to fit with your team?
Oh.
And think about the value of that additional perspective that you could have in bringing someone who's returning to the workplace, who's been the CEO of the family, is what it really comes down to, and working finance and logistics and communication and all these other roles that you have to play as the mother in the household. And now they're going to bring a lot of that experience into your organization. And so it's for potential, but it's also for a good cultural fit and the
Mhm.
value that they would bring as a person. And giving that example of what you just talked about, the extra effort that they're going to put in to learn some more
Mhm.
and to really strengthen the team and to build a stronger, cohesive team. So, personality fit, I think, makes a big difference in that hiring process too.
And I think there's sometimes we overlook that. We're so busy trying to get the skills right. And skills are teachable. A culture fit is not.
Yeah.
That is much more difficult to find. So being really honed in on what your culture is and the dynamics in it. And really, there was an organization that I worked at, and I was with them for 15 years. Incredible. Just loved them. For a very long time, the talent acquisition team kind of hid it under the rug. And I don't know, maybe not everybody, but I, let me rephrase this. We didn't own as an organization that flexibility and agility was something that was required. Like, We got contracts because we could turn on a dime. The agility that we had, how nimble we were, that was one of our greatest assets that we had as an organization. Our ability to think, I'm walking directly forward at this moment, and right now I'm going to pivot and turn. And I just got to let go of everything that I had planned and was doing over here, and we're going to pivot and we're going to turn. And all 70,000 employees are going to pivot and turn collectively. There was one day where we woke up and we said, you know what? This is an asset. We're not going to hide from it. We're going to intentionally recruit and be transparent that if you're not effective with change, if you're not okay with change, then you need this probably isn't the place for you. And that's okay. But we stopped hiding from that and we got real with that. And once we did that, our retention numbers went up incredibly because we were able to get the culture fit right.
Yeah, and those are incredibly hard skills to identify clearly in the application and the interview process. I
Hmm.
mean, people will tell you, "Oh yeah, I have great agility. I can adapt to change really quickly," because they know that's the right answer.
Right.
It's really hard to go back and say, well, "Okay, prove it in this situation." Again, when you look at the women that have taken time off to raise a family and they're coming back into the workplace, I'll tell you, raising a family requires a lot of agility.
Yeah.
And so there are skills like that that can be directly attributed to that. I'll put in air quotes time off, because it wasn't really time off. It was time doing a different kind of work, but that develops great skills that are needed within the workforce. And I love that Heather made the point that hiring managers who immediately dismiss somebody because, oh, well, they've been out of the workplace for a while. They're passing on some potentially really good opportunities to strengthen their team and to have some of the most dedicated, loyal people working on the team.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. I also appreciate that she didn't shy away from the flexibility.
Yeah.
She called that out specifically because one of the hesitations can be, oh well, if you've got young kids, there may be more flexibility that's needed. And she faced that head on and said, yeah, parents do. A mom, a dad, whichever it is, if they have kids, flexibility is going to be needed. Yes, that's true. We don't need to shy away from that. We can look at that with open eyes, but the flip side is, and I know several parents that I work with that when she was describing them, I saw these people's faces in my mind of, yeah, they have to leave a little bit early to pick up the kids from school, but then they come back on later once they put the kids to bed. They're back online because they need this job. They want you to know that they can handle it, that they've got this, like you said, like she said, and then you said here this week, I want to prove you right.
Yeah.
I want to prove you right. Yeah.
Well, and flexibility in the workplace, parents are not, is actually a really important trait for a lot of workers today.
Yeah.
It's not just parents that want and need flexibility in the workplace. You've got a lot of people, particularly in the generations that are the last two generations that are coming into the workplace right now, that flexibility is what they live their life around. They love having that flexibility. And so if you have a very rigid policy in your organization in terms of work hours, workplace, work time, you're not only missing out on that one specific market of parents returning to work, but you're potentially missing out on a large part of the market. And so look at flexibility. And I like how you and Heather both said it. Look at flexibility as an asset, not so much as a liability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else, Mark?
One of the other points that I thought she made that was fantastic was when somebody's coming back into the workplace, They don't have the network that they need. And so be the network for those people. She talked about how her brother helped her practice interviewing for jobs and put out questions there for her. Be that person that can help as just a sounding board and to let somebody practice the answering questions. This is part of the work that I do. And so I always say, let them practice telling the story that's going to help illustrate the value that they're going to bring from the experience that they've had in this time away from the standard workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Tell those stories that'll make that connection. I remember an experience my daughter had when she was a senior in college and she was applying for an internship, and it was in teaching, and she had all these practicum courses where she spent some time in the classroom, but she was like, I don't have a lot of experience. And she would answer all the questions as I was practicing this interview with her with the right answer, the answer that she would expect that the interviewers would want to hear. And I challenged her to tell a story, to tell of an experience that she had that demonstrated the answer to that. So if a question was like, how do you handle discipline in the classroom? Instead of giving a pat answer, say, well, let me share an example of a time where I had to have some discipline in a classroom, because this will illustrate my philosophy around it.
Mm-hmm.
And when she told the story, the answer was so much more powerful. And so tell those stories to make the connection between my experience at home has
Mm-hmm.
given me this skill set that's going to be super valuable to your organization and your team. And if you can make that transition, it's very powerful in the interview. My daughter's experience was that she got exactly the internship she wanted. And the school that hired her, the vice principal said that they had to fight for her because everybody else wanted her too, because she stood out by telling that story in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
So get somebody to practice, to listen to your stories, to push you a little bit on making the connection between the experiences that you've had and the value you're going to bring into that organization.
Well, and this is why, going back to the storytelling, this is why the behavioral based questions are often asked, right? And Heather brought up use AI, right? She didn't call out AI. She said chat GPT, but I'm just calling out AI, right? Use AI going in there, which I thought was brilliant. You can put the position, you can put the job description in the AI system and then say, what are some interview questions for me? What are some behavioral based interview questions for me? And then ask me harder questions. I thought that was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Um,
You
what
can even use that philosophy to say, and here's my recent experience. How could I make a connection between this experience and the answers to those questions? Because you can use AI to help you with that. Those large language models,
I
uh,
love that
whether
ad.
it's Chat GPT or anything else, but
Mhm.
you can use that as a sounding board as well to just to get some ideas.
I want to add one more piece. You were talking about, people in your life kind of supporting you, showing up for you and all of that. And I want to really spotlight her tip at the end for us. Not just looking for the potential in others, but telling them.
Yeah,
And that's so important. When I was when I'd been a food server for 13 years. I was 29 years old, and I was working on getting my bachelor's, like one or two classes at a time, and working three jobs, and just struggling to get through it. And my mom says to me, Amy, you've got to finish and get your bachelor's. And I just didn't see, I thought, I have a family, we have restaurants in our blood. My grandfather worked back of the house, my grandmother worked front of the house. There's such pride in the restaurant world in our family. And I just thought I'll be a food server the rest of my life. And my mom said, this is incredible work. It's important work. There's a lot of pride in this work. But Amy, this is hard work. This is hard work. And she said, I can see you doing more. She looked at me and she said, I could see you doing more. I didn't see it, Mark. It was my mom who said that to me. It was my mom who said, Amy, you've got to finish getting your bachelor's. There's more for you out there. I'm so glad that you've done this work. This work has provided wonderful, wonderful potential and money for you and all of that. You've gotten so much from this, but it's time. It's time, Amy. And at 37, I finally got my bachelor's. And then on my master's, I got it when I was 49. It took a while, but I did it.
Well, and that's such a great point too about the power of having somebody give you some of the confidence that maybe you lack, or
Oh, yeah.
helping you find the confidence within you that you need. And that's part of why I love that Heather has created Elavare to help women to do that. Off the air, I shared my own family's experience
Mm,
where my dad left our family when my mom had 6 children, all under the age of 10. And she had been a stay-at-home mom. And she was left in a situation where she said, what do I do?
mm,
And at that time, in that era, she didn't have anybody giving her advice and direction and help. Now, to her credit, she stepped up and took her bachelor's degree in animal husbandry and got a teaching certificate. We always used to joke that she had a bachelor's degree in animal husbandry, but started teaching seventh graders, which are kind of like animals anyway. And so that worked out pretty well. That's managing some animals in there. But she taught school for 26 years and raised these 5 kids along with her mother, who was widowed when her husband was in his early 70s. And they had to step up to that, but they didn't have the support. They didn't have anybody saying, here's some guidance along this path. And I'm sure that there are a lot of women out there who have struggled with that because they didn't have that guidance. And so I just love that Heather's put together an organization that can help people to be successful. And the other part that Heather emphasized is to really find themselves,
mm.
find out who they are, and create an identity that can help them to move forward and to bring their best selves into the world. What a compassionate way to help support people's growth, by to help them identify who they are and how they can best contribute.
I can't I can't imagine the woman who is in a situation like your mom was in or like Heather was in, where you're having to deal with the dynamic of your partner leaving. What does that do to you psychologically? And then you also don't even have the time to allow yourself to go there because you've got to figure it out.
Yeah.
You've got these the most important thing to you in the world, your babies, that you need to care for. You've got to figure out how to get food on the table tomorrow, how to keep the electricity on. I can't imagine that world.
And it's a world where you do need support. You need a system. Now, in our case, my grandparents did step in, and we actually lived with them for a little while.
Mm,
But at the same time, it's a change in identity and who you are. And that, to your point, you have those life changes, and it does shake your confidence pretty naturally. And so, having a tribe, having a community of people who can help you along that path, help restore your confidence and give you some direction, tremendously helpful, tremendous value. So I just really huge kudos and shout out to Heather for the work that she and her people at Elavare are doing.
yeah, it's truly truly important work. What else, Mark?
I think that the last thing I want to say is make sure you go back and listen to Heather's episode if you haven't already. And if you have, maybe you want to go back and listen to it again. And then just to tag on to Heather's tip, when you know people that are in that situation, they're returning from full-time parenting to the workplace, give them the support. The greatest compassion you can give them is not sympathy, but to support them and to help them see the value that they have as an individual and encourage them, coach them, hold them accountable along that path, because that's the real caring thing to do. All right, friends, thank you again for joining us for this episode of the Infused Compassion podcast. Do your best. That's all we can do. But if you're aware of it, if you're conscious, look for ways that you can infuse compassion into other people's lives this week. Thank you again for joining us. Join us again next week.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Infused Compassion podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please share a review and like the podcast so other compassionators can join us. Until next time, let's all do something each day to infuse compassion into the world. For more information on our guests, see the show notes. For more information on Mark and Amy, go to infusecompassion.com.